Hi everybody, Brian here from touringplans.com, and today we are starting a new series aimed at people who are not quite as used to Disney World as, say, we are at touringplans.com. We know we get a lot of new subscribers around the end of the year and people planning for their trips for the following year. So we have a 5-part series coming for you all about planning your trip to Walt Disney World. Walt Disney World is not the only property that we cover at Touring Plans. We also cover Disneyland in California, cover Universal Orlando, we even cover the Disney Cruise Line in Washington, D.C. But this series is meant a little bit more for Walt Disney World. The first couple parts could definitely be translated to pretty much any vacation, especially theme park vacations. The last few in the series are going to be a little more Disney World specific. What is this series, you ask? Well, this one today is all about how to pick when you are going to the theme park. And this one is coming out, as you are seeing, the day after Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone. In 2 more days, the 28th, we'll be choosing how long to go. And right after New Year's, January 2nd, will be all about choosing a hotel at Walt Disney World. January 4th is all about the tickets, which are a little bit wild at Disney World right now. And then the final one in the series, January 7th, will be all about Fast Pass Plus. And I don't know if you can hear that or not, but I have a cat who is very excited about it. So when to go? This might be a little bit bigger question than you think it is. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and let's go over some of them right now. A lot of the information, not just in this video, but in this whole series, is coming from articles done by Erin Foster for our blog at blog.touringplans.com. She wrote an article exactly about when to go, and it is linked below here in the comments if you would like to read it. She goes a little more in depth in some of these areas than I do. So first, let's start with what you need to make this decision. Number 1, you need calendars. Just a yearly calendar. You need a calendar for your children's school if you have kids in school. If those kids play sports, you need a calendar for that. Personal appointments calendars, and okay, clear. The point is, that is where you start with your calendars. Next, you will need a list of special events at Walt Disney World and refurbishments, both of which can be found at touringplans.com. Again, linked below to both of those pages. We have a full events calendar for all the properties we cover. Here is Disney World's right here. And here is the refurbishment page with the dates on when everything is going to be closed that we know of right now. Word of warning on that one, Disney doesn't always announce refurbishments a year in advance. If your trip is any farther out than, say, 3 months, there may be more refurbishments added. Some of these may be changed. And of course, a very important thing you need is the touringplans.com crowd calendar. Also linked below, and it looks just like this for Disney World. It will show you our estimates for the crowd levels on every single day at every one of the Disney parks. Now, you don't really want to use this as your one and only choice maker, but if you're deciding between a couple different times of year, it might help show you when it will be a little bit less crowded than other times. So here are the decisions to make. The way I like to start is starting with the no's. The times that you know you definitely cannot go. The first big decision there, if you have children in school, is do you take them out of school? My wife and I and our school district are all generally okay with taking the kids out of school, but that is not the case with everyone. It is really up to you. It is up to your child's teachers. It is up to the school district a lot of times. Some districts just do not like kids missing school. So that's a big one. If you do not want to take the kids out of school, that's a lot of days to start crossing off. We will start crossing off days very shortly. The other thing to consider is if there's times you just cannot miss at work. My mother, for instance, hi mom, works for an accountant. So tax season is just out. No vacations during tax season. If your job has anything similar, you know those are days you can't go, just cross them off. What would be yeses if there was a specific festival or event that you definitely want to see? If you've never been to the Epcot International Food and Wine Festival and you always really wanted to go, well, maybe that's the window to look at. Other yeses to consider, are there attractions that you consider must see? I love the Haunted Mansion. I really like seeing the Haunted Mansion when I am there. If I see the Haunted Mansion is up for a refurbishment, I maybe don't want to go during that time. Now, like I said, that's a little tougher to judge too far in advance, but if there is a known refurbishment coming up, it's always a good idea to check. Another one to consider is water parks. If you're going to be doing the water parks, most of the winter, at least one of the water parks is closed. They do annual refurbishments for the water parks. If you definitely want to experience both water parks, check that schedule too. There are other things to consider. Crowds, like I mentioned, that crowd calendar. The weather. Is the heat just too much for you in the middle of the summer? And the cost. It is more expensive to go at busier times than at less busy times. Again, something the crowd calendar can help you with. Let's move over here and start crossing dates off. All right, so I have enlarged my 2019 calendar right here, and I'm gonna run through this exercise as if I was planning a trip in 2019. And I am, although we already kind of know when we're going, so that wouldn't really be fair if I just circled dates and ended the video, right? First up, what times can I not go? I mentioned we don't mind taking our kids out of school, and our school district doesn't have too much of a problem with it, but we do have standardized testing in April. They do not like the kids missing that. So I am gonna go ahead and cross off the entire month of April here, just to make sure. Also, even though we don't necessarily mind taking them out of school, I'd still rather not. I'm not gonna cross off all the school days yet, but given the choice, I might lean to where we don't have to pull them from school. The crowds don't matter too much to us because we get to the parks early and we use a touring plan every time. So we can deal with some crowds. That said, we don't want to go when it's super duper crowded. And looking at the crowd calendar, it's pretty easy to see the very, very crowded times. And that is anytime around Christmas. So we're crossing off this whole Christmas into New Year's week. Thanksgiving, which is late next year, it's the 28th. So we're going to cross off Thanksgiving week. And the popular spring break Easter times. Now Easter is in April, the 21st here, so that's already crossed off, but mid-March gets a little bit busier because of spring breaks. So we're gonna cross off those 2 weeks there too. Still got a lot here to choose from. Let's say offhand, I looked at the refurbishment calendar. Peter Pan is under refurbishment from January 7th through February 2nd. Let's say my kids really like Peter Pan, so we're not gonna do that either. So there goes the end of January and the very beginning of February now. And I don't like when it gets really hot. Now, I mean, it's Florida, it's pretty hot all the time, but I always feel like August is just a little bit worse, so there goes August. And we also don't want to take the kids out too close to the end of school here. So I'm gonna take out this 4-week period right there. And we don't want to take them out right after they've gone back to school. So we're gonna take out those first 2 weeks of September. Now you're kind of seeing how this goes. This is where it gets tough. If you break it down and you only have, say, a 3-week period, well, that's easy. You know when you're going already. When you have big swaths of room left on this calendar, now it gets a little trickier. I personally like when it's a little bit cooler. Florida doesn't have many cool times. It's basically, sometimes the end of December into January, very beginning of February are about the only times when the temperature is what I would consider reasonable as a Northeasterner. Just looking at kind of a random 6-day trip, right here, the 6th through the 12th is a pretty good option. Crowds are reasonably low. Crowd calendar says it's like 1 to 4 range. There's like 1 5-day in there. Weather is usually reasonable. Sometimes there's a little bit more like rainy days, and it can still get kind of cold for Florida, at least in that period, but low crowds, nice time to go. Or if we don't want to take the kids out of school, we could go down here and go June 13th to 19th. So if I narrow it down to those two, let's look at the pros and cons. February obviously is cooler. June is going to be hotter. So that is a bonus for February. Airfare. I looked up airfare using a site aggregator, sites like kayak.com, Momondo, Skyscanner, things like that are a good way to kind of get an idea of what prices could be. Although I would suggest if you see a low price at an airline, going to the airline's page directly and searching for that, because sometimes the lowest possible price doesn't include things like a carry-on bag or choosing your own seat, things like that that you may end up having to pay a little extra for. So the low price could be a little deceiving. But in my quick overview, it looks like the airfare from my area, which I think I was looking at the Philadelphia International Airport to Orlando, which is usually not a particularly high price route. And it was in the 180 and under range for this one. I saw some flights in the 150 to 160 range per person. June, we're looking at around 200. So not a lot of difference, but for my family of 4, we're talking, maybe $80 to $100 But that's not the only difference. The hotels are cheaper in February than they are in June as well. The full price rates for hotels in this section of February are cheaper than in this week of June. Now, a full price rate, otherwise called a rack rate, is something that you may not have to pay. Disney has pretty much constant discounts that you can find that are available, anywhere from 10% up to 30% depending on time of year, type of hotel. I will talk more about that in the choosing the hotel video. But for now, we're just looking at full price rates. This week in February, if I were staying at Port Orleans French Quarter, which is my favorite of the moderate resorts, it would cost $232 a night. If I was staying at Wilderness Lodge, which is one of the more reasonably priced deluxe resorts, that would go up to $378 a night. That's for this section of June. Those numbers are $272 for Port Orleans French Quarter, so $40 a night higher, and $446 for Wilderness Lodge, almost $70 a night higher. So if those are the 2 weeks I'm considering, and I don't mind taking the kids out of school, I think that February one is the winner. I like the weather a little bit better then, the crowds are a little lower, and the prices are a little lower. Just in general, that's how I would do it. And feel free to tell me anything you think I missed in the comments below, and ask any questions. I will be here to answer them. And that's it for this video. Make sure you check out the rest of the series. Next time we are talking about length of trip. See you next time. Thank you for watching. Be excellent to each other.